If you are not respectful and if you treat it as a game and you want to play a game, then you bet the spirits will play a game with you. Hey there, witchy folk, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ella, and for today's video we're going to be talking about Ouija boards. So I have mine right here. So we have a couple of things that I want to discuss in this video. We're talking about what a Ouija board is, what it's not, how to use it safely, and my personal experiences with a Ouija board, as well as a couple of tips and tricks just surrounding Ouija boards in general. What is a Ouija board? Now, you may know it as a witch's board, a talking board, Ouija board. There's like a multitude of different names for this, and it is essentially a divination tool, like any other, like tarot, to communicate with spirits or to communicate with your own subconscious. There is a certain level of fear attached to Ouija boards. Many practitioners, even though they practice for many years, even though they might be using pendulums or tarot or oracle cards or runes, they might stay away from the Ouija board. And why is that? So we have a lot of fear that has sort of created its own egregore around the Ouija board, and it kind of feeds that monster, if you will, right? Like that fear that we put into the Ouija board. Where does that fear come from? Genuinely, like truthfully, I think two places. Originally speaking, Ouija boards were especially prominent in the late 1800s and early 1900s. That's when we really see a lot of people getting really into Ouija boards. But with that, you also, of course, have a level of spooky stories that would have happened, maybe perhaps negative stories, which then turned into Hollywood stories, where Hollywood would take it and create stories around the Ouija board being really scary. And these stories just kind of get perpetuated. It's kind of like folklore about the dangers of the Ouija board. And to a certain degree, I do think it actually isn't a bad thing that we have this fear, because perhaps it kind of gatekeeps it a little bit in a positive way, where someone who is fearful and someone who has those fearful beliefs is less likely to dabble in something that they might not, do as you should. And in all of witchcraft, in my opinion, if you don't know what you're doing, like chances are something is either not going to work at all or you're going to have a negative experience, right? So a little bit of fear can sometimes be actually beneficial. So what is a Ouija board compared to, for example, tarot? Now, if you are working with a Ouija board, you're allowing a spirit to work through you and guide you, and allowing that spirit to speak through you, essentially, right? However, it's funny because people think that's really scary, but that, in all truthfulness, is the exact same as a pendulum or tarot cards. It depends on your technique. But if we are communicating with any sort of spirit, if we're asking any sort of ancestor or deity or spirit for any sort of guidance, and we are using a tool to do so, or even our own sort of intuition, you are allowing a spirit to talk through you. And that is really what a Ouija board does too. Now, with a Ouija board, you just have a lot of Hollywood stigma around it. If you are in any way fearful of using a Ouija board, do not use it. I feel like spirits can smell fear. No, but I feel like if you're having a hard time with it, I feel like if there's a level of you want to step out of your comfort zone because you want to actually heighten your horizon or expand your horizons, and you want to learn, then I think you can, even if there is a little bit of, fear, but it's not fear, it's more so like, ooh, ooh. I feel like that's a different thing than if you are frightful, if you are scared. Because if you're scared, you're probably just gonna have a negative experience. If you push yourself so far that you are gonna have a negative experience, I would not recommend you to ever use a Ouija board. Another thing that I want to talk about is it is not a toy. It's I know, especially during Halloween time, which is coming up, people are super into it. People are going to be like, let's use this Ouija board. It's a game. As a matter of fact, it's been made into a game. It's a board game in certain stores. But it is not a game. No divination tool is ever a game. No religion should ever be considered or approached as if it were a game. And I feel like that is kind of relevant because a lot of people, when they encounter Ouija boards and they use it as a game, what happens is the spirit is going to play with you and mess with you. It's my honest opinion. I feel like if you are not respectful and if you treat it as a game and you want to play a game, then you bet the spirits will play a game with you. Something to really take, if there's one thing you're taking out of this video, it is do not play a Ouija board. Do not play the game of the Ouija board. Let's actually talk about the tips for working with a Ouija board. Number one is do not just simply ask into the void. Any divination tool you direct at someone. You ask my ancestors, my deities, the local spirits, my subconscious. You're always wanting to contact someone specific. Imagine a telephone. If you're gonna pick up a telephone and dial a random number and just be like, who is there? You're probably gonna get someone who's gonna mess with you, or you might get someone who's just bored. Whereas if you're calling someone specific, right, you've got your grandma's phone number and you're gonna call your grandma, it's gonna be a different experience than if you just call someone randomly. And if you don't have anyone to specifically contact, leave it alone. That's another tip of mine. Make sure that if you want to try out a Ouija board, you have an actual purpose for trying it out. You're not just trying it out because it's kind of, ooh, this is new, this is interesting, I haven't tried a Ouija board yet. Don't just try it for the sake of trying it unless you have a specific question you want to ask, a specific reason, or a specific spirit that you want to contact. Because, and I mean, to be fair, it can be mundane. Like if you want to just communicate with your grandmother, like there's a purpose behind your call. There's a purpose behind, and even if it is just chatting, there is some sort of level of purpose, and it's not just because you're bored. Because I feel like, again, there's a lack of respect there if you're just calling because you're bored. So one thing I personally actually found is that I bought this Ouija board, this one here specifically, and I will link the shop that I got it from below. They're an amazing Ukrainian team of artists. If you want to work with a Ouija board, get it and just connect with it, let it kind of like sit around, let it vibe with you a little bit, feel the vibe of it, see how comfortable you are with it. Just like tarot, just like pendulum, you kind of have to like vibe with it first and build a relationship to work with it. Now, my next tip, and I think this tip is one that you will see frequently, is do not work with a Ouija board by yourself. Now, I've done Ouija sessions by myself. I think it's one of those things where if you're very comfortable, then of course. But if this is your first time to try working with a Ouija board, your first experience with a Ouija board, only do it with someone who already is experienced and who has had positive experiences, and a person that is grounding to you, someone that is not going to play tricks on you, that is going to make fun of you for maybe having a little bit of like, it's normal to kind of be a little bit like, ooh, this is new, this is interesting, ooh, you know, like that's normal. But you need to have someone who is a solid friend, a solid person that you can rely on, someone that's not going to just mess with you, right? You do not want to have that, because that's just going to give you and them a negative experience. Once again, you're treating it like a game. So make sure if you ever do have a Ouija session with someone, then let that person be experienced, let that person be respectful, grounding to you, and trustful. The next tip is protect yourself. So use charms, cast a circle, tread the mill, create a safe space or a sacred environment for you, somewhere that is a feeling of safety is what you want. Do not use a Ouija board in the graveyard, because that's what the movies do. Somewhere that is not super spooky, and as a matter of fact, if you want to do it during daylight, I've done it during daytime. Don't do it in the middle of the night when things are especially spooky for your first time. A spirit is going to be able to come through daytime or nighttime. and you do not want to add more factors that could add to being jumpy or being kind of fearful or kind of creating a illusion, let's say, of unsafety. You want it to be a very calm, very safe sort of experience. Yeah, use charms, cleanse yourself, cleanse everything around you, ground and center, tread the mill, cast a circle, whatever you might want to do. Invite any sort of protective spirits or anything like that if you want to do that, and just be very protected. Now, I had a question from one of my Patreons, and they asked what to do when you had a negative experience with a Ouija board. And essentially, and I had a friend that I was chatting with as well, who was saying they've tried out a Ouija board as a child and it was a negative experience, and what do you do now if you want to kind of work your way into building confidence again with it? And in my opinion, go over the tips that I just mentioned. So if you are wanting to work with a Ouija board out of genuinely wanting to use this as a divination tool, then try it out with someone that you trust and work with someone that is very safe to you and grounding to you. Use any kind of wards or protective measures that you would in any other divination setting. Do not just try it out, have a solid purpose for it. And I would even say, and that's something that I feel like a lot of people kind of miss, is like in tarot, like in pendulums, you can connect with yourself. You can use the board to ask your subconscious about any sort of questions. You can work with your own shadow, for example, and work with that and build up a trust and build up a confidence that way. So if you are wanting to connect with your own shadow self, with your inner child, or anything like that, then you can do that, or your higher self, whatever you might want to call it. Try that before you try out working with a spirit that is outside of you, because I feel like that lets you build confidence and is something that is going to feel much safer and much more comfortable, because you usually already know your own spirit and it's not something that's going to be super spooky, let's say, right? That way you kind of develop an understanding of, okay, this board really truly is just another divination tool. It does nothing by itself unless you work with it, like in tarot or any other divination method. So yeah, I think that is actually already it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any kind of experiences with a Ouija board, let me know below in the comments. I would love to read them. Or of course, if you don't want to share them, you could also email me, because I am planning to read a couple of spooky stories, let's say, or experiences during the time of October. So I'm kind of collecting them now already. But yeah. Now, if you would like to support me, or if you would like to have more insights or behind the scenes content, extra content, I do have a Patreon that I will link below. So if you want to see that, if you want to support me, that would mean a lot to me. I also will, of course, link my Instagram and all that stuff. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and blessed be. Bye!